The victory feast, the Grand Council Hall of the Galactic Empire glowed with golden light. Towering pillars stretched into the high ceiling, and banners of conquest waved gently in the artificial breeze. The Empire had declared victory over humanity, and tonight was the night of celebration. Alien nobles from across the stars gathered around long tables filled with exotic food. Shimmering drinks and music that echoed through the chambers. Laughter roared like thunder. Arrogant words spilled from every corner, and the air carried the scent of pride. They believed the war was over. They believed Earth was broken. The Emperor sat on his throne at the far end of the hall. His crown shimmered with jewels mined from conquered worlds. His eyes scanned the room, and a smile curved across his sharp face. "Let this be remembered as the night the human threat finally ended," he declared. His words were followed by cheers. Claws slammed against tables, wings fluttered in joy, and hundreds of alien voices shouted in triumph. The generals of the Empire raised their goblets. One by one they bragged about their victories. "The Terran fleets burned before our cannons," one said proudly. Another added, "Their colonies begged for mercy, yet none was given." The hall shook with laughter. They mocked humanity, they called them weak. They said Earth was nothing but dust now, but in the shadows near the entrance, a single figure stood silent. He wore no armor, carried no weapon, and yet his presence was heavy. His steps were calm, slow, and steady as he moved into the hall. Some aliens turned their eyes to him and frowned. They saw a human, a Terran diplomat, walking into their victory feast without fear. Whispers broke through the noise. "How dare he step here?" one alien growled. "He should be executed on sight," another hissed. But the diplomat did not stop. His clothes were plain, a simple black coat, and his face carried no sign of fear. Only a calm expression rested there, as if he knew something the others did not. The music slowed, the laughter weakened, and soon the eyes of the entire council hall turned toward him. The generals sneered. The nobles laughed again, but softer this time. They wanted to see how far this foolish human would go. The Emperor lifted a hand, silencing the hall. His eyes narrowed. His voice echoed. "You dare walk into my chamber? On the night of my greatest triumph, tell me, human, why should I not order your death here and now?" The diplomat did not bow. He did not flinch. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the vast hall like steel. "Because, your majesty, victory is not yours yet." The words spread like fire. Gasps filled the chamber. Some aliens burst into laughter again, mocking the human's arrogance. One general shouted, "What madness is this? We destroyed your fleets, your armies, your colonies. What is left of humanity?" The diplomat's eyes moved from face to face. He did not shout, he did not argue. Instead, he simply said, "You celebrate too early." The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. His claws tapped against the golden armrest. "You dare speak riddles in my presence? Do you not understand, human, your world is ash? Your people are scattered, you are a remnant. A ghost of a species." The human smiled faintly, not with joy but with certainty. "Ghosts can still haunt the living," he replied softly. For a long moment, silence fell over the grand chamber. The nobles shifted uneasily. The generals exchanged uneasy glances. The human should have been trembling. Yet he stood taller than any of them expected. His voice was calm, but behind his words was an invisible weight. The Emperor studied him with narrowed eyes. There was something in that human gaze. A spark that did not belong to the defeated. A strength that should not exist in a species broken by war. "Tell me your name," the Emperor demanded. The human diplomat bowed his head slightly. "Names do not matter tonight," he answered. "Only the rule matters." A ripple of confusion spread across the room. Aliens whispered to one another. "What rule? What does he mean?" The generals slammed their hands against the table, growling in frustration. "Speak, human!" "What is this nonsense?" But the diplomat remained calm. His eyes never left the Emperor's. He spoke again. His words quiet, yet sharper than any blade. "You think you have won, but you have not yet understood humanity." The Emperor leaned back slowly. His smile returned, but it was no longer full of pride. It was thinner, darker, mixed with curiosity. He gestured with a single hand. "Very well, human, amuse me. Tell us this rule of yours." The diplomat did not answer. Not yet. Instead, he walked forward slowly, step by step. Each echo of his boots against the marble floor felt louder than the music that had once filled the chamber. The eyes of the galaxy's rulers followed him. Some were angry, some were fearful, but all were watching. He stopped only a few paces from the Emperor's throne. He looked around the hall filled with those who had mocked humanity, who had raised their cups to humanity's defeat, and his voice fell to a whisper that every ear could hear. The rule, he said, is simple. The hall froze, waiting, breathless, and in that moment, the grand victory feast no longer felt like a celebration. It felt like the calm before a storm. The uninvited guest. The silence in the grand hall was heavier than stone. Every alien eye fixed on the human who had dared to walk among them. The feast that once roared with pride now felt like a stage, and he was the center of it. The nobles shifted in their seats, wings twitched. Claws scraped against the tables, some tried to laugh, but the sound was thin, nervous, empty. The human diplomat had broken the rhythm of their celebration. His presence was like a shadow in their light. A hulking general rose to his feet, his armor glowing with golden markings of victory. His voice thundered, "This is mockery. He enters without invitation. He insults our honor and he speaks of rules. I demand his execution." The general slammed his fist into the table. Cracking its surface, the Emperor raised a clawed hand, stopping the soldiers before they could act. His eyes narrowed, but his voice carried calm. "No, not yet. Let him speak. A man who walks into a lion's den must believe he holds fire. Let us see if his fire burns." The diplomat gave no bow of thanks. He simply looked at the general, and in his calm voice he said, "If you kill me tonight, it will not change what has already begun." Gasps and murmurs spread across the hall. The arrogance of such words stunned them. He was not pleading, he was not begging. He spoke like one who knew the ground beneath their feet was already breaking. The nobles mocked to hide their unease. "What could a broken race begin?" one hissed. "They have no ships left, no armies, no colonies." "He lies," another shouted, but then, as if answering the whispers, the lights in the grand chamber flickered. Just for a second, shadows danced across the walls. It was a small thing, yet it planted unease deep in their hearts. The diplomat did not move, did not even glance at the ceiling. He simply whispered, "Do you think your empire has eyes everywhere? Do you think your fleets are untouchable even tonight as you feast? Something happens that you cannot see." The Emperor's jaw tightened. His voice grew sharper. "Enough of your riddles, human. Speak your so-called rule, or I will let my general silence you." The human took another step closer. His boots echoed against the marble floor. Every step sounded like a drumbeat, like the ticking of time itself. His eyes never left the throne, his voice was still soft, but every word carried weight. "The rule," he said, pausing as the council leaned forward, "is not for the weak to understand. It is not written on paper. It is not spoken in your treaties. It is carved into the hearts of every Terran. It is the law of survival." The hall filled with angry voices. Nobles slammed their hands on the table, generals snarled. Empty words. Meaningless, they tried to laugh, but the sound cracked. The calm confidence of one human against their entire empire unsettled them more than fleets of warships ever had. The Emperor's smile returned, but it was thinner now. "So tell me, Terran, what is this rule?" The human's lips curved into the faintest smile. He tilted his head, and in a whisper that carried like thunder, he said, "The rule is simple. Humanity does not fight for victory. Humanity fights until the enemy can never rise again." The hall froze. Silence heavier than gravity filled the room. The nobles blinked, the generals stared. Some felt a chill run down their scales and fur. Then came the laughter, loud, cruel, desperate. "Arrogant animal," one noble cried. "Your fleets are gone," another shouted. "Your world burns, you cannot touch us," they mocked. But the diplomat only smiled. He leaned closer, speaking so calmly it made their voices sound weak. "Are you sure?" As if the universe itself answered, the walls trembled faintly. Somewhere deep in the palace, alarms began to hum. The generals snapped their heads toward the sound. The Emperor's claws tightened on his throne. "What trick is this?" one shouted. The human did not move. His calm voice cut through the panic. "You believe victory is yours because you saw fire fall on Earth. But Earth was never alone. You celebrated too early. And that is the mistake every empire makes." The Emperor leaned forward, his voice low, dangerous. "What have you done?" The diplomat's eyes gleamed. His words were almost gentle. "We followed the rule." The lights flickered again. Longer this time, the music had stopped. The laughter had died. And the great victory feast now tasted of fear. The nobles whispered frantically, "What if he speaks truth? Why do the alarms sound?" The generals barked orders. but their comms crackled with static, no signals leaving the palace. And through it all, the human stood calm, an uninvited guest who had turned triumph into doubt. The Emperor's eyes locked on him, and for the first time that night, pride gave way to unease. He realized this human had not come to beg for mercy. He had come to deliver a warning wrapped in a rule the galaxy was about to learn. The whisper, the alarms faded into silence. As if the palace itself had swallowed the sound, shadows stretched across the golden hall. The light above flickered weakly, and every alien eye turned back to the human who stood in the center. He had not moved. His hands were folded calmly behind his back, his posture steady, unbroken. The Emperor, who had once leaned forward in arrogance, now sat still, his eyes locked on the stranger. The generals barked orders into their comms again, their voices tight with anger. But only static answered. No signals left the chamber. No orders reached their fleets. The room felt sealed, isolated, as if the galaxy beyond had gone silent. The nobles grew restless. "This is a trick," one whispered. "He has no power here," hissed another. Yet their voices trembled. Their claws scratched nervously at the polished table. Their wings twitched as fear crawled into their bones. The diplomat finally broke the silence. His voice was soft, almost gentle, but every word struck like iron. "Do you hear it?" The Emperor frowned. "Hear what?" he asked. The diplomat tilted his head. "Nothing," he said. "No fleet, no comms, no sound of control." "That is what you should fear," the nobles gasped. The generals growled. "Lies," one shouted. "Our fleets are spread across 100 stars. Our empire is unshakable," another added. "He is bluffing. Kill him now." The Emperor raised his claw again, stopping them, his instincts sharpened by centuries of war and conquest. Whispered caution. This human was no fool. He had walked into their den with purpose, and every word was measured, calculated. The diplomat stepped forward once more. His boots echoed sharply against the marble. His eyes never left the Emperor's. He leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping lower, until it was barely more than a whisper. Yet the whisper carried to every corner of the hall. "The rule," he said, "has already been written into your stars." The words slid through the air like poison. The nobles stilled, their voices caught in their throats. The generals froze, fists tightening around their weapons, and the Emperor's gaze sharpened, his crown casting long shadows down his face. "What do you mean?" the Emperor demanded. His voice was calm, but there was a weight of unease in it. The diplomat's lips curved faintly. His whisper cut the silence once more. "It means that as you celebrate, as you drink to victory, your fleets vanish into darkness one by one. They do not answer because they no longer exist." The room erupted. Nobles shouted in panic. Generals cursed. Soldiers rushed toward the exits. But the great doors of the chamber refused to open, sealed shut. They trembled under the force of clawed hands and weapons, but they held. "Impossible," one general roared. "We have the strongest fleets in the galaxy. How could Terrans destroy them?" The human's eyes glimmered with cold certainty. "You never saw all of us. You saw what we allowed you to see. You fought the front lines, the expendable, the fragile, but the heart of humanity was never on the battlefield. It was waiting, hidden, building, preparing." Gasps filled the chamber. Nobles clutched at one another. Generals glared with growing dread. They had believed humanity was finished, yet this man spoke as if Earth had only just begun. The Emperor's claws scraped across the throne, his voice dropped low. "You claim your kind still holds strength, yet your world burns. Your cities turn to ash." The diplomat's whisper grew colder. "And still we endure. That is the difference between us and you. You celebrate a single victory. We prepare for the end of all wars." The hall fell into an unnatural silence again. Every eye locked on the human. His whisper was softer now, almost too soft to hear, yet every syllable carved itself into their hearts. "Do you know what humanity does when cornered?" he asked quietly. "We do not surrender. We do not fade. We rise, and we burn until the predator fears the prey." The Emperor leaned forward, his sharp teeth bared. "And you, one man, expect me to believe humanity can threaten an empire that spans galaxies?" The diplomat's faint smile never wavered. He stepped closer still, so close that his words seemed meant only for the Emperor. But the entire hall heard them. "I am not here to make you believe," he whispered. "I am here to remind you of the rule. Humanity fights until the enemy cannot rise again tonight, Emperor. That enemy is you. A chill swept through the chamber. The laughter that once filled the hall was gone, replaced by the sound of heavy breathing, of claws tapping nervously, of whispers that carried dread. The Emperor sat frozen, his heart pounded, but his face betrayed nothing. He stared into the eyes of the diplomat and saw no fear, no desperation, only certainty, and that certainty was more terrifying than any fleet. The nobles could not speak. The generals clenched their jaws, and the soldiers by the door tightened their grips on useless weapons. All of them felt it. The whisper of one human had shaken the foundation of an empire, and in that whisper they realized the victory they celebrated was already gone. The unraveling. The council chamber that once thundered with laughter now shook with fear. The nobles whispered frantically, their jeweled robes rustling like restless wings. The generals shouted orders again and again, but their comms returned nothing, only static at last. One general slammed his claw against the golden table, his voice breaking through the chaos. "I will see for myself," he growled. He pressed his wrist console, activating a secure feed to the nearest battle fleet. The hologram flickered to life above the table and the chamber fell silent. The image was of space, black and endless, where the Empire's banners usually shone bright. Yet tonight the stars were littered with debris. Shattered hulls drifted like corpses. Silent flames burned without sound. The fleet was gone. A scream tore from a noble's throat. Another general cursed. "Impossible, this cannot be real. Our fleets are invincible." He tried another channel, another fleet, another outpost, but each feed showed the same nightmare. Ships torn apart, comms silent, worlds unprotected. The nobles wailed in disbelief. "This is a trick." "It must be illusion," one shouted. But even as he spoke, the alarms returned, this time louder, sharper, echoing through the chamber like war drums. The Emperor's claws dug deep into the armrests of his throne. His voice roared above the panic. "Silence!" The chamber froze. His golden eyes burned toward the human standing calm at the center of their storm. "What sorcery is this?" the Emperor demanded. "What weapon have you unleashed?" The diplomat did not move. His voice was steady, a whisper compared to the noise. Yet it carried through every ear. "No sorcery, no illusion. Only truth," the general snarled. How could Terrans strike so deep? "We crushed their armies, we burned their homeworld." "They should be nothing," the human's lips curved faintly. His eyes reflected the holograms of burning fleets. "You crushed what we allowed you to see. You burned what we abandoned long before the war began. Earth was not the end. It was the beginning." The nobles clutched their robes tighter. Their arrogance crumbling, one noble spat. "You lie. A single species cannot outmatch the Empire." The human turned his gaze to him, his voice calm, almost pitying. "You never understood us. You thought victory was in numbers, in fleets and worlds, but for humanity, victory is survival. We endure no matter the cost, and when we rise, we do not stop until the predator is broken." The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. His towering frame cast a shadow across the hall. His voice was heavy, controlled, yet each word trembled with restrained fury. "If what you say is true, if my fleets fall, then you bring war not just to me but to the entire galaxy. Do you seek to burn everything?" The human diplomat's whisper cut sharp. "We seek only one thing, that those who strike us never rise again. That is the rule." Another hologram flickered to life on the table. Unbidden, a feed from a distant outpost lit the chamber in blue light. The screen showed alien soldiers running in panic. Sirens wailing, then silence. The image went dark. The nobles screamed, "It spreads! It spreads!" One collapsed to the floor. Trembling, others shouted at the generals. "Protect us, do something," but the generals could not. Their faces twisted with rage and fear. They knew deep inside that their fleets were not simply being attacked. They were being hunted. The Emperor's gaze returned to the human. His voice dropped to a low growl. "You speak as if humanity is everywhere. As if you already control the stars, but that is impossible. No one hides from the Empire." The human's eyes were cold, sharp as blades. His words whispered like a final breath. Then perhaps the Empire was never looking in the right places. A chill ran through the nobles. A silence heavier than before pressed upon the chamber. The weight of his words felt like chains around their necks. The alarms cut off again, but this time the silence felt worse. It was not peace, it was suffocation. The Empire's leaders sat trapped in their golden hall, watching their empire unravel piece by piece. And through it all, the human did not gloat, he did not boast. He simply stood with the calm certainty of one who had already won. The Emperor lowered himself back into his throne, his face carved from stone, his eyes narrowed. "If this is true, then you have declared the end of us." His voice was dark, almost a whisper itself. "But do not think humanity will escape the fire it unleashes." The human's reply came swift, soft and merciless. We do not escape fire. "Emperor, we walk through it, and when we emerge, nothing that tried to burn us remains." The chamber trembled with fear. The nobles dared not speak, the generals dared not move, and for the first time in centuries the Empire realized it had no control. The unraveling had begun, and nothing could stop it. The rule revealed, the chamber was silent. Yet the silence was alive with dread. The nobles sat frozen, their jeweled robes trembling on their shoulders. The generals stood stiff, their claws curling into fists, unable to hide the fear that crept into their eyes. The holograms of broken fleets hovered above the table like ghosts, burning ships drifting through the void, empty comms filled with static. Each new feed carried the same message. Humanity had struck back. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, his eyes glowing like molten gold. His voice was sharp, cutting through the thick air. "Enough riddles, speak the truth. What have you done? What is this rule you claim binds your kind?" The diplomat raised his head. His calm expression never wavered. He stood not as a man surrounded by enemies, but as a judge delivering sentence. His voice was soft but steady. "The rule is simple. Humanity does not fight for victory. Humanity fights until the enemy can never rise again." The words echoed across the chamber. Bouncing off the golden walls, the nobles gasped. Some whispered in disbelief, "Madness, they cannot mean it." Others shivered. "That is why their history is filled with endless wars. They never stop." One general snarled, "Empty words. If your kind believed in such a rule, you would already be extinct." The human diplomat's eyes turned to him, and for the first time, his whisper carried fire. "No, General. It is because of this rule that we still endure. Empires rise, predators hunt, and every age declares humanity will break. Yet still we stand, and when we fight, we do not stop until our enemy is ashes." The nobles shrank back, clutching their robes tighter. The generals exchanged uneasy glances. Their minds raced back through history, remembering wars, remembering how Terrans never surrendered even when outnumbered. The Emperor's claws tapped slowly on the armrest of his throne. His expression unreadable, his voice came low, like a growl from the deep. "And you would turn this rule upon the Empire?" The diplomat's gaze did not waver. His answer was as calm as it was merciless. "The Empire chose this path when it struck us. You celebrated too soon. You believed the war ended with fire upon Earth. But Earth was never the heart of humanity. The heart was hidden, waiting, building fleets you never saw, weapons you never imagined, allies you never considered." Gasps rippled through the chamber. A noble whispered, "Hidden fleets impossible?" Another hissed, "How could they hide so much?" The diplomat's faint smile returned. "You never looked for what you did not believe possible. You saw weakness, but you never saw patience. You saw defeat, but you never saw preparation, and that blindness has doomed you." The hologram shifted again. Without command, a massive shadow filled the space above the table. A ship black as the void, vast and unmarked. Its design was foreign, alien, yet terrifyingly efficient. Dozens more appeared behind it, surrounding entire star systems like predators circling prey. The nobles gasped and clutched each other. Generals shouted in disbelief, "Where did these come from?" "These are not ships we have seen before." The diplomat's whisper cut them. "They are ships built in silence, in shadows, in places you thought lifeless. They waited for the moment you thought us weak, and now they wait no longer." The Emperor's face darkened, his voice rose, filled with anger. Yet beneath it was something else, fear. "If what you say is true, then you bring not war but extinction. You would destroy an empire of 1,000 worlds." The human's eyes were steady, his whisper colder than steel. "No, Emperor. Humanity does not seek conquest. We seek one thing only, that those who dare to strike us never rise again. That is the rule. That is why your empire falls tonight." The nobles broke into panic. Some cried out for mercy, others shouted at the generals to protect them, but none could move. The holograms of Terran fleets multiplied, each one surrounding another imperial fleet, each one cutting off supply lines, each one striking unseen. The generals gritted their teeth, pride battling with terror. They had never imagined this. They had never believed prey could stalk the predator. The emperor stood tall, his golden robes trailing down the steps of his throne. His voice thundered through the chamber. Then hear this, human. Even if your fleets burn mine, even if you strike every world, the empire will endure. We are eternal. The human stepped forward, so close now that his whisper fell like a knife across the throne. So said every predator before us, and yet, none of them remain. The hall fell into a silence so deep it seemed the galaxy itself had stopped to listen. For the first time in its history, the Empire understood fear not from armies, not from warships, but from the whisper of one human, and in that moment, they knew the rule was not a threat. It was a promise, the shadows of Earth. The golden chamber trembled as the holograms shifted again. No one commanded them, yet image after image filled the vast hall. Each projection showed the same truth. Fleets of Terran warships, dark and silent, cutting through the void like predators. They were unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Their hulls gleamed with black steel. Their weapons glowed faintly with untested fire. They bore no banners, no marks of pride, only the cold emptiness of war. Some were as large as moons, others sharp and fast like daggers. All of them moved with purpose. Gasps and screams filled the council hall. Nobles clutched one another, their jeweled crowns shaking on their heads. Generals tried to deny what their eyes saw. "It is false, it must be false," one cried. But the images did not fade. The warships fired, beams of light splitting through the void, shattering Imperial cruisers into dust. The diplomat did not look at the chaos. He kept his eyes on the Emperor. His whisper floated through the air. "Calm and steady, you never understood Earth. You thought our strength was in the world you burned. But Earth was only the seed. In the shadows, far from your reach, we grew forests of steel, forests of fire," a general roared, his voice shaking. "How? How could your kind build this unseen? Our scouts cross the galaxy. Our spies watch every system. It is impossible." The diplomat's faint smile returned. "You looked for power in the wrong places. You searched for empires, for colonies, for armies in plain sight. But humanity has always thrived in the margins, in the places predators ignore. We do not need to rule the stars. We only need to wait in their shadows." The nobles began to cry out. "Protect us, protect the Empire." Their voices cracked with fear. But the generals had no answers. They had boasted of invincible fleets, yet those fleets now burned in silence. The holograms shifted again, showing a dozen Imperial worlds, each one lit with sirens, skies filled with black silhouettes of Terran dreadnoughts. Shadows swallowed their cities. Lights went out one by one. The Empire was not fighting a war. It was being smothered. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. His robes dragged across the marble floor. His eyes glowed like molten suns. His voice thundered. "You call this justice, Terran. You slaughter entire worlds. You bring fire to an empire of thousands. You are no better than those you claim to despise." The human diplomat finally turned, his gaze moving across the nobles and generals. His voice was quiet, but it struck with the weight of stone. "Do not mistake us. We are not here for conquest. We are not here for empire. We are here because you chose war. You chose to burn our home, and now the rule is answered." The nobles shivered. Some tried to shout in protest. "We did not know. We thought your kind weak." But their voices were drowned by the growing hum of the holograms. More fleets appeared, more shadows filled the galaxy. The Emperor's claws tightened. His voice grew sharp. "You cannot kill us all. No species can destroy an empire so vast it is folly." The diplomat's eyes locked on him. His whisper came colder than ever. "We do not need to destroy you all. We only need to make you fear us, and once fear takes root, your empire will devour itself." The generals glared, their pride wounded but their fear plain. They had built an empire on control, and now control was gone. Their fleets silent, their worlds burning, their emperor facing a single unarmed human who had unraveled it all. The emperor's chest rose with fury. His voice cracked through the hall. "You call yourselves prey-turned-predator, but remember this. Empires always rise again." The human stepped forward, his boots echoing like drums of war. His whisper carried through the silence. "Not after us, not after humanity, that is the rule." The chamber shook again as the holograms of Terran fleets closed in on the last strongholds of the Empire. Silent, unstoppable, merciless, the nobles wailed. The generals clenched their claws in despair. and the Emperor's golden eyes flickered for the first time with true fear. The shadows of Earth had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end of Empire. The council chamber shook as the holograms filled the air. Images of Terran dreadnoughts surrounded every Imperial world, their shadows blotting out suns, their weapons glowing like the breath of gods. The nobles cried in terror, their jeweled crowns slipping as they fell to their knees. The generals stood frozen, their pride stripped away, their claws trembling. The Emperor's golden eyes blazed as he looked upon the human. His voice thundered, "Do you think fear will make us kneel? Do you think shadows and whispers can end an empire that has ruled for 1,000 years?" The diplomat's calm gaze did not falter. His voice was soft, but each word struck like steel against stone. "No, Emperor, fear does not end you." "Humanity does," the nobles wailed. Some begged, "Mercy, show us mercy." Their voices cracked, but the human did not turn to them. His eyes stayed locked on the throne. The Emperor spread his arms wide, his voice echoing with desperation and rage. "If you destroy us, you destroy yourselves. Without the Empire, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Is that what you wish? To burn all you see," the human's whisper cut the air clean. "The galaxy will burn itself if predators believe there are no consequences. Humanity is the consequence." The chamber shook as another hologram flared to life. This one showed the Imperial capital's outer fleets, thousands of ships once believed untouchable, each one now surrounded by Terran warships. Outnumbered, outmatched, their shields failed one by one. The feed cut to static as the last flagship exploded in silence. Gasps and screams erupted from the nobles. One collapsed to the ground. Clutching his chest, another wept openly. The generals stared at the burning images, their mouths dry, their voices gone. They had commanded empires, but now they could command nothing. The Emperor stepped down from his throne. His golden robes dragged across the marble floor. His face was carved with fury, but deep in his eyes flickered the fire of fear. He stopped before the human, towering above him. "What will you do, Terran? Will you wipe us all away?" The diplomat's voice was quiet, merciless. "The rule is not conquest. The rule is not empire. The rule is survival. We fight until the enemy can never rise again. You struck us, you burned our world. Now the empire pays the price," the nobles cried louder. "Please end this, spare us," they groveled. But the diplomat's eyes never softened. Humanity had learned too well what mercy to predators brought. Only more chains, more fire. The Emperor clenched his fists. His voice dropped to a whisper. "And if I beg, will you spare me?" The diplomat leaned closer, his whisper colder than the void. "Humanity does not take vengeance. Humanity delivers justice. And justice does not beg." The Emperor's chest rose and fell. His pride shattered, his throne behind him nothing more than gold and stone. He understood in that moment what the others had not. The war was not lost tonight. It had been lost the moment humanity had chosen to endure. The holograms above shifted one final time. They showed the Empire's maps, star systems once glowing with Imperial banners. One by one the lights blinked out until only darkness remained. A galaxy that once bowed to the Emperor now stood in silence. The nobles wailed like children. The generals lowered their heads. Defeated, the Emperor stood in silence, his empire crumbling in shadows. The diplomat turned slowly, his calm footsteps echoing through the chamber. He walked toward the great doors which now opened without command. Beyond them stretched the darkness of the palace halls. Before leaving, he spoke one last whisper, a whisper that carried through every trembling ear. "Remember this night, remember the rule. Humanity fights until the enemy can never rise again." Then he stepped into the shadows, leaving the rulers of the galaxy broken in their own hall. The Emperor sank back into his throne, his golden crown heavy upon his head. His empire shattered, his voice silent. For the first time in its 1,000 years, the Galactic Empire understood what it meant to be prey, and far beyond the palace, the shadows of Earth spread across the stars, unseen, unstoppable, ensuring that never again would the galaxy forget the rule of humanity.